Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Can we get everybody's attention? We're ready to go ahead and get started. Thank you, thank you. All right, thank you all for coming out for the October 16th. It's a workshop on Camp Wewa, kind of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And so Radley's got a PowerPoint presentation he wants to show, and then we'll open it up for questions from not only the commissioners, but also to the general public. So with that, Radley Williams.
Good evening, Radley Williams, Parks and Recreation Director. Welcome everybody to Camp Wewa. We're excited to have you out here tonight. As the mayor said, I just have a brief presentation, kind of overview of the camp and where we're at and kind of the vision plan that we're currently working off of. We will go ahead and jump in. We'll cover a little camp history, give an update on the acquisition grant, go over some of the camp operations, our programming, and capital projects that we've completed that are in process and that we are planning for the future. We'll start off with our camp history here. The camp was established in 1921 and purchased by the Boy Scouts in 1925. The YMCA of Central Florida purchased the camp in 1950. The swimming pool out back was built in 1966, so the swimming pool definitely has some history and character. The dining hall that we're sitting in was built in 1969 by North Orlando Kiwanis Club.
There you go.
The Low Ropes course, challenge course, was completed in 1991 as an Eagle Scout project. The Goliath rock wall out in the front of camp was built in 2001 and is a rather large 40-foot tall climbing structure. The YMCA renovated the camp cabins in 2003 and added air conditioning units. Due to the coronavirus, the camp closed for nearly 2 years back in 2020. And the city of Apopka purchased the camp in August of 2021 and reopened camp in 2022. Just a little fun fact, Wewa is the land of many waters. So we have 3 lakes that surround the camp property here. So it's the land of many waters. Camp has a variety of amenities. We have some fishing docks, the dining hall we're sitting in. We have a newly renovated basketball court. We have our cabins, our archery range, our low ropes team challenge course, our rock wall, as I mentioned, the pool, pavilion, and we have some walking trails back through the challenge course. Update on the grant. The city did receive a $1 million matching land and water conservation fund grant. It was received for the acquisition of the property. As part of that grant, there were some projects that were not funded by the grant, but that were included in the narrative of the grant application. That included rebuilding the basketball courts, replacing the office roof, installing an ADA pool chairlift, converting the city water sewer, replacing the pool pump, adding a sidewalk to the pool and dining hall, ADA parking and camp upgrades, rescreening our porch here on the dining hall and on art and craft building back over by the lake, relocating a power pole that was out in the open space and adding some ADA parking spaces. Out of those projects, we have completed the vast majority. There are 4 that are currently still in process. City water and sewer, the water portion of that project has been put out to bid, is currently on the street. The pool pump, we are actually hoping to have that replaced early this week. So that'll check off the list here very shortly. If you walk the camp, you'll notice we have installed new parking pads and sidewalks to connect people from an ADA parking space to the amenities we have throughout the property. The concrete's in. We are waiting for a price back on installing the striping for the ADA pad and the signage. So those are near to be completed as well. And then we have 100% design plans completed for ADA restroom renovations. It'll include renovating the back half of the dining hall there into 4 ADA restrooms, and then our double cabins, which have ADA access from what will be a new parking pad through the sidewalks, will each have 2 ADA restrooms with showers. Those plans, like I said, are under 100% complete. They are being reviewed by the building department currently, and next steps from there would be to get the projects priced out with our piggybacked general contractor. Our current camp operations, we're open daily, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The park is managed by the events manager, Carolyn Ray, who's sitting right next to me here, along with 2 dedicated full-time staff. We have an outdoor recreation specialist. The position is currently vacant. We have it posted internally at the moment for filling. We also have a full-time recreation leader 2 position. Both those positions, we do require the staff to be certified in our rock wall belay certification. We also have them go through archery training. Caden's our recreation leader 2. He's back here. He's actually our archery 2 certified, so he actually can train other staff. So in the summer, he was our main trainer for our archery program for summer camp. We also have 32 part-time seasonal staff, predominantly in the summertime, and the park property is maintained by our parks and facilities divisions, so we handle all the grounds maintenance and facilities maintenance with our staff. The service areas we're currently hitting, we hold rentals and retreats at the facility. It's wide-ranging from tent camping, primitive camping, cabin camping. We have special events that come in, the PopCon, the Jingle Mingle. We also have church groups that come in, might rent for the day, do a retreat. We've had some corporate events come in, rent for the day, do a retreat, do some team building. We also do have the park programmed. Predominantly it's been summer camp, but we have opened some new programming this fall, including beginner youth archery and beginner youth rock wall. We also did advertise adult versions of those classes. We didn't have enough enrollment to get that started. In the rock wall and archery youth programs, we have about 7 right now in each program. Those programs are capped at 10 per session, so pretty good response for our first run of the program. And I'll get into some more details about the scheduling for the programming here in the next couple slides. We do also, like I mentioned, it is open daily 9 to 5. We are open for passive public use, so that could include coming out to fish off the dock, to walk the trails, to have lunch in the pavilion. If we don't have a group going in the pavilion, utilize one of the picnic tables. It is available for public enjoyment during the daily operation hours. We also have hosted some educational field trips and are working to increase that. We currently have a homeschool group that comes every Wednesday for their daily field or for the weekly field trip. They'll utilize the dining hall. They'll utilize the park for educational purposes. We're also working with the Orange Audubon Society to bring in some bird programming for our summer camp and some of our retreats. And we're working with IFAS, UF IFAS I don't know if anybody made it back to the northwest side of the park behind the Art and Craft building. We are in the process of installing a pollinator garden, butterfly garden. If you walk over there, the initial layout is in place. For phase 1, we're going to go in and extend it to a little bit further into the wooded area as we get phase 1 wrapped up. But so we're working with them on some pollinator programming potentially and some water quality testing type programming that, again, we could bring in for our summer camp, internal summer camp programming, but also establish a system that's set up for our rentals and retreats if they're looking for educational opportunities. We've also had the City of Orlando come out a couple times with their environmental program. So we do have some of those programs coming to utilize the camp facility. Just a couple of our recent facility stats. We had, this past year, we had 15 rentals. Those are the private retreats and rentals. We had an additional 4 private events, so those are privately hosted events. By the time we get through the movie and Christmas time, we'll have 3 city-run events, one of them being Easter. One of them is a Halloween movie in the park coming up this week. And we're planning a similar type Christmas time holiday event. And we've, to date, run 4 city programs. It's our summer camp, our archery, rock wall, and we have started a aquatic swimming program, which will also be a water safety program in the spring. That program is currently contracted. We are also actively seeking an aquatics coordinator at a part-time position. That person will help coordinate our lifeguard staff and coordinate with our aquatic programmer to continue to build pool use. So looking into our programming, we have 3 main categories I've put up so far: our camps, our pool, and our skills. Our camp programming, we look at, currently we've had summer, but we're looking at starting a spring program and potentially also a winter program. Our pool, as I mentioned, we're starting the water safety in the spring. We're also looking at developing in the spring a lap lanes opportunity where people can come out in the morning, get a 15 to 30-minute session in on the pool lap lanes for exercise. And then we're also looking at creating a summer open swim program, which would be a weekend program. Obviously, we'll have camp during the weekdays, but open the pool up for some pool time Saturdays and Sundays for an open swim style program. Just some information about the pool. The shallowest portion of the pool is 5 feet, so it is still a pretty deep pool. So it's not your typical recreation pool. It's definitely more of a lap pool. And then we have a deep end where there's a rock wall that goes over the pool that can be utilized, and a little slide that goes down to 13 feet or 12 feet. So there's a deep end of the pool. We do have life jackets, and we require our summer camp to pass the swim test before they're allowed in the pool without a life vest. So a similar type program would have to be in place for an open swim style with some swim test qualification. And then our skills programming, we have archery, rock wall, and we are looking at starting up a fishing, like a beginner fishing program off of our fishing docks here. Again, those are more skills style programming. And we'll get into our seasonal calendar. We break our seasons down into the 4 seasons, winter being December, January, February, spring would be March, April, May, summer, June, July, August, and fall would be our September, October, November. As we go through these programs, these are currently on the calendar for as we move forward. This winter, depending on if our seasonal staff outlook, I think we're gonna, no, this is next winter. Next winter, we're gonna start the winter program and the youth beginning fishing. January would be our beginning fishing as well. And then February will be archery, rock wall. Again, we're gonna try and offer the adult version as well. Now these are, I didn't put it on here, but these are 4-week session programs. So you'd sign up for a 4-week program. Basically, you sign up for the month, participate in the program, and then if you want to continue on. In having some discussions with Caden in our archery program, the goal is to get these beginner level programs full, get people through the beginner levels to where we can then begin to offer an intermediate and then an advanced program down the road. So we've got to start with the beginner though. Okay, our spring program, again, we're looking at archery and rock wall. We will introduce this spring a day camp here out at Camp Wewa for spring break. during the timing of the OCPS spring break. And we are also, as mentioned, we'll have the youth swim lessons, and we're looking at an adult senior swim type program. So think like a water aerobics style program for our adult senior. And again, not programming, but offering lap playing opportunity. So that'd be on an individual basis. Our summer program is geared heavily towards the youth summer camp. As I mentioned, we'll be still looking to do the summer swim program, which would also include the adult senior swim. So again, the goal is to try and utilize that pool throughout the summer, during the summer months, to open it up to more public use. Back, where's our fall? Apologize, the fall slide has disappeared. Is it? Did you see it? No, it's winter. Fall would be similar though to our summer programming. The pool's still open, so we would run the pool. Let me back up a slide here if I can. Apologize, I don't know where the fall slide went, but it'd be similar to our pool schedule there. And the archery and rock wall would return. So the goal is to try and get, when we're not in camp season, try and provide those skill level opportunities for people to come use the park. How many sessions we have right now? It's Monday, Wednesday? Yeah. So Monday, Wednesday for archery, and Tuesday, Thursday for rock wall. So, and those are obviously afternoon classes after school's out and parents are out of work. We also, just some additional programming that's going on at the camp. We are the home pool for both Apopka High School and Wekiva High School through the OCPS agreement, or that will be coming your way on a renewal contract here very shortly, just waiting to get it back from the school board. I mentioned the Audubon Society and IFAS for some of the programming that we're bringing in. Oh, there's fall. It's out of order. So, but that's a look at the fall programming. Capital projects. This is just a list of what we've completed, in progress, and upcoming. So we did have a large Lowe's partnership camp day back when the camp was purchased, and they did a lot of work at the camp. Did everything from painting the cabins and the buildings to installing new fans in the pavilion, providing all the landscaping and mulch for the front entrance of the camp and throughout the camp, in front of some of the cabins as well. So they did a lot of good work for the camp to kind of get that initial push to get the camp back open. So we definitely appreciate the partnership with Lowe's and their service project. As mentioned, we renovated the basketball court. We've replaced the roof on the office building. We've completed some dining hall renovations, which are actually still very new. The floor is a couple weeks old, along with staining the walls and the ceiling to kind of freshen up the look and improve the aesthetics of the facility here. We completed rock wall and low rope course repairs, again, back when camp was reopening. We've replaced the bunk beds throughout the cabins up to the standards that we need. We completed some dock repairs on both docks and also had to clear the path out back to the back dock, so that all got taken care of. And we also were awarded a Bash Pro Shop grant last year, which helped provide, I think it was 6 new canoes, a little paddle boat, a bunch of fishing gear, a bunch of stuff. I think it was like $7,000 grant that we got, and it's an equipment grant. So that was nice to receive from Bass Pro Shops. In progress, we have our ADA restrooms. As I mentioned, the plans are in review right now. Next steps will be to go ahead and get that out, quoted with our contractor, and plan a time to get that renovation project started. The water sewer conversion, as mentioned again, water is out on the street right now. Sewer is planned to be done by end of 2024 is the latest we heard from Public Services. The butterfly pollinator garden is in process. We're working with UCF students through State Representative Bankston's office they're coming out to volunteer on October 26th. We'll share that information to help us plant the plant materials for the pollinator garden, butterfly garden. Pool pump replacement, as I mentioned, should be completed this week. And then we're just a few days away from our full facility monitoring. That's the fire monitoring through the fire system. Something the camp was not required to have, but as we were going through upgrades and some repairs, we felt it was necessary to go ahead and get it up to be monitored, and that will be every building on property minus the sheds. So even the art and craft building will be monitored 24/7. Upcoming, we have the deck is reaching the end of its useful life. We've had to do many repairs on it. So we actually have some funding in for a deck rebuild. We have funding for a new high ropes course. The current high ropes course is an older school style where it's separate elements. So you need to have belay staff at each element to operate. I think there's 6 different activities out there. We'd have to have 6 staff to run each of those, plus somebody floating. They don't really do those style anymore. It's more of a continuous line. You hook in, you climb a section, you go through your course, and then you dismount. And the other problem with the current high rope course is it's not able to be certified for safety. So we've not opened that since the city's purchased the park. We also have funding. We're making it work, so thanks to the IT department today, but we don't have Wi-Fi in this building, which is a challenge in today's world. So we've got some funding for some network and Wi-Fi capabilities. We have some offices in the back here, a clinic that currently doesn't have any technology capabilities. So we do have some money for IT services and to install some security cameras. In the future, I think it's in the next year plan, we have money for cabin floor repairs. We'd like to do something similar to what we have here, a non-slick, gritty surface, cleaned up though. It's all concrete flooring in those cabins. We have cabin roof repairs. We have money in the next couple years to do that. So we're going to start with the most dire roofs that we have on property. We've had some that have been hit by trees lately, so they're on the top of the list. You might see some if you're walking around, and some patches that we've had to do. So we'll be moving through the next couple years, getting roofs replaced on all the buildings. We're also going to have some additional restroom renovations. Each of the bathhouses are going to need some work here over the next couple years to just refresh and make sure they're in good working order. Pool deck and upgrades out at the pool. As I mentioned, it was built in the 60s, so it's definitely seen a long life. The deck is starting to see some of that age. So again, in the next couple years, that's on the plan to try and get that addressed. And then commercial kitchen replacement. We do have a company that we're working with to come in and do another full service on the equipment, do a deep clean, get them looking as nice as possible. But a lot of that stuff is burnt on stuff. So it's functional now. It works, but again, as we're continuing to upgrade the facility, the kitchen equipment is on the list to address in the near future. And with that, that's the end of what I have presented. So if we want to take questions now, or if we want to go.
Yeah, we'll ask for the commissioners first, and then we'll open up to the public. Mr. Nestor, you got some questions?
I do, but it's more, I have a lot of questions, but, and, you know, because this is always kind of a pet project for me for sure, but I'd rather hear from residents too and kind of see where their questions are going to, because I don't want to take deep dives in this. My understanding of this event was more of a, where are we going with this? So I don't want to take a deep dive in something that's like, hey, we're not going that direction. So for me, I'll hold my questions off, just to hear where the public wants to go with this.
Mr. Smith?
One of my questions is, I noticed the hours are from 9 to 5. Is there a plan for having later hours for, let's say, students, especially high school students, middle school students, don't get out until late and want to come and take advantage of the parking? Closing at 5, they will only have an hour actually to be here. So that was one of my concerns.
Yeah, so definitely in the fall and winter when the time changes, it does get dark out here, so we won't be getting much past 5. But there is opportunity in the summer months to maybe extend summer hours to accommodate some of that. The goal is, and currently right now with our programming, our skills programming, it runs, when does it finish? 6:30, so 7 o'clock. So we've kind of already got the park's still open for those programs till about 7. So. So I don't know if that answers your question, but in the spring, that programming will return. So it might be something we look at to just adjust the hours to 7 o'clock.
All right. And in reference to the pool, is there a lifeguard?
Yes, so we have lifeguards on staff. We need more as we try and open the pool up for more use. Lifeguard it's not just for us, but lifeguard's a challenging position to fill. But we're working with both schools, both high schools, and the swim teams to try and get inroads for some of their students that are at their appropriate age for lifeguarding to get certified and come lifeguard for us.
Okay. And then my last question is, when we have private events, how do you keep the public separate from the private events or from the campers when they're here?
So that is one of the challenges that we go through with the way the camp operates. We have a gate at the front, so if it's after hours, we do close that gate. Let's say it's an overnight camp or a camp out, we'll close that gate at the park closing. Honestly, we haven't had many people walk through the park on a regular basis. But one of the things the grant does require is public access. And it's got to be a limited time that we close the park to public access. So that is a challenge we're going to continue to kind of have to navigate on how we handle that. One of the guidance from the state on this is if you have a facility that you're closing for public use, you need to try and have another facility that is comparable for the public use. So let's say the pavilion's rented and we close that down completely to public use. We need to try and have something else in that similar category available, which is a challenge because we have one pavilion right now. So that's something we're going to consider as we continue to move through their operation on how we want to address that. And it is a grant requirement that we have public access. And the park is open daily. So.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Velasquez.
First, I would like to say is, why didn't we get this before today so that we could have kind of just looked at it for ourselves? This whole presentation, because it's all kind of new to me right now. But you have a laundry of so many that we're going to do in the next couple of years. And we made a very big investment initially, which till today I still stand by that we needed to acquire Camp Wewa and keep it as is. But is there a time frame when all the, all the renovations, updates, is there a time frame that you are going to be completing it? And also, since we're opening it to the public and we still need all these renovations and updates, is it compliance for the public to be here, to be here safely?
Yeah, the camp is safe for the public to use. We are working on ADA upgrades to, again, it's an old camp. It does need a lot of work to get us to that point. With the design plans for the ADA restrooms that we have that are under review currently,
Right.
our hope is that I get that notice here very soon that we're good, and I can then approach our contractor to get us a price on that.
So I just heard you say that a grant, are we applying for a grant that is saying that we have to have it for public access? Is that what
No,
do we have a grant
the
already?
acquisition grant, the $1 million acquisition grant,
Right,
included the stipulation for public access.
so that's the grant that we're working with
Correct.
right now.
Correct. So now the capital items were separate from the grant. The grant money only went to the acquisition. So the purchase of the property, that $1 million went to purchase the property. In the narrative of the grant, we included the items that we had discussed. Back up here. So these items right here,
Okay,
items right here were included in the narrative. Basically, the application for the grant included some renovations that the city was committed to making as part of the grant, but that would be funded outside of the grant. So through the capital improvement plan.
so, I mean, initially, we spent, what, $4 million to purchase what have we expended over and above that with Camp Wewa?
The acquisition, sorry, is it on? Yes. The acquisition cost was $4.7 million. That was for the land and some buildings. Since that time, we've had additional capital purchases, about $225,000, and other operating expenses probably run about $500,000 per year. So for FY '22 and FY '23.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you because,
I thought it was
it's kind of difficult because, yeah. So over and above that, I'm sorry, you said 225,000 on what?
in capital for Camp
capital?
Wewa. That's FY '22, okay, in FY '23. And about $500,000 per year for operations for '22 and '23. Okay, so running about 1.83 million. And some other projects that he's talking about that is a part of that grant, from the converting it from septic to sewer and the conversion to city water. Those are in our grant fund. That's about, we have $500,000 budgeted for the septic to sewer. We spent about $100,000, that's all on engineering and design. That is funded with another FDEP grant of $250,000 and $250,000 with ARP funds that you're allowed to be the match. Okay, and the conversion to city water is about $552,000, and that's one that we brought to council in July to move forward with that, to secure the funding and to move forward with that project.
Okay. I'm gonna also wait to see what some of our visitors and guests are asking, but is there any way that we can get a copy or a chart of actually what's presented right now, and then where we have already spent, what's been renovated, sort of a breakdown? And he talked about so many different activities that you're planning. Is there a way, like, if you have a calendar and each day you kind of say, this is the activity for this day from that time to whatever time? Because you threw a lot of activities, and I'm trying to figure out how are we how are we balancing the public's access to those that we cannot let the public in? Especially during the summer with the camps. I mean, that's strictly for safety reason because of the young, campus that we have. But you have archery, the rock climbing, swimming, you have the high school coming in. You have a lot of different activities, but I don't see what time we're allocating for that.
Right, yeah, so actually, we also did just launch the new look for the Camp Wewa website. So there's a Camp Wewa calendar that'll include all that information on it. But during those skills programs, the program will be running and the camp will be available for public access still. So somebody could still come and fish off the dock while we're running archery at the archery range or doing rock wall at the rock walls. So that will still be, the park will be open for public access during those times. The pool, we do pool hours Saturday and Sunday. The park is open. If you want to go participate in the pool, you would do the pool program. If you wanted to just come enjoy the park, you can still come enjoy the park while that program is running.
So during the weekends and anything after 5, do we have staff on board or do we have seasonal workers? How's that going to work?
Yeah, so our weekend coverage right now, it varies. With the programming launched, our full-time staff have had to kind of shift more towards the weekday, weeknight programming. So our seasonal attendants have been taking over the weekend shifts.
The other thing also I wanted to ask is, we have a very big facility here. Do we have it inspected? Is it a yearly inspection? Is it and where do we have certificates that say that the camp has been inspected, certified? Do we have that?
For
any
safety.
taxpayer who wants to come and see who has come to inspect Camp Wewa, how was it certified? It's like what we do with, elevators, right? There's a permit in front that tells them when the camp has been inspected.
Right, so for our facility issues, our facilities maintenance team and our staff monitor the park and we submit work order requests for those to be corrected. For our safety equipment, fire extinguishers, it's all tagged on the equipment. So the hood system that's in the kitchen, when that's inspected every biannually, it gets inspected, it gets tagged with a new tag to show that it's in compliance and been inspected.
Are there certificates that
It's
are visible to everyone?
It's tagged on the equipment, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's tagged on the equipment, but I'm just saying, do we have it, on a board?
That's how they, yeah, so that's how they issue those. We don't get a physical certificate for that work. And if you look at the fire extinguishers, it's normally a yellow tag that'll hang off and it'll have the date that it was inspected, certified, and recharged if needed. So it all hangs on the equipment. Like I said, the hood system for the grill, it's on the fire suppression system.
Okay. Do all the sprinklers get inspected?
We do not have sprinklers on this property.
Oh, you don't have sprinklers?
No, it's not required for this property.
Oh, okay.
So we have the fire alarm, smoke detectors, and then, like I said, we got the monitoring that's coming on board, which is basically if the alarm goes off without us calling, it calls the fire department immediately. So, which again was not a requirement for this property based on the setup and the code, but it is something that we felt necessary to bring up for the property.
Okay. I don't want to take up too much time, but before you forget, this presentation, can you send it?
I will send this to you
me?
tonight, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Becker.
Can you put fall in the correct order now?
I just moved it already.
I'm kidding.
I don't know how fall jumped down there.
I'm just kidding. No, but before we get into it, I would like to thank Ms. Ray for your leadership here. You're in charge of 2 great assets for the city, so it's a big responsibility, so thank you for that. Sorry, I'm a little congested. Really the table stakes, the non-negotiable aspect of the camp is making sure that it's safe and it's secure for whoever's using it. So I think, to what Commissioner Velasquez, I think, was touching on is, making sure that Fire has come out and kind of given their blessing, certified that the camp is safe from a fire prevention and fire safety point of view. From an ADA compliance perspective, obviously that's pretty binary. Certain measurements, certain amount of spots that you have to have here. So making sure that we have that on our roadmap and we're marching towards that in terms of whatever budget that you need for a capital expenditure. I mean, that's just, in order of priority, that's just the non-negotiable stuff. I mean, we've got to do that or else we have a tremendous amount of liability on ourselves in terms of running the camp. I did see on the slides, and again, I think when we asked to have this, it was part, State of the Union in the camp, but also kind of that question that we have in the back of our mind is this really a camp or is it a park? And I would like to run that to ground a little bit tonight after public. I'd love to hear what the public has to say on that topic because it does impact, obviously, the grant funding, that $1 million that we have. We go sideways on that, we risk money. Now, we risk money, but you can either say we want the grant funding and we want to operate it more as a park and public access has to be like almost full-time. Whereas if we run it as a camp and there's going to be periods of time where we know that we want to block this camp off for overnight experiences and things like that, we can do that. We'll have to pay $1 million to do what we want to with this particular camp. And not going into the politics of it and going backwards, but that's just the reality of the matter. So on one of your slides for the summertime, there is overnight camping listed there. So kind of tell me what your thought is on what that experience looks like going forward. Is that how much time? What groups is that? If you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so overnight camp, the past 2 years or 2 summers, we've run it for just a month. It's been July. Overnight camp is a more difficult camp program to run by its nature than the day camp because you got a lot more responsibility with kids staying on property and also hiring the appropriate staff to manage that when a lot of your staff for summer programs are going to be your late teen, college age group. So we have had some challenges attracting top tier staff to fill those ranks. Now, we've had great ones. We just haven't filled them necessarily completely, which has worked out because our numbers haven't filled up for that overnight camp. It's also, overnight camp, in our experience in the last 2 years, is also a heavily non-resident participated camp. Both years, average resident participation was about 15%. The rest was non-resident outside the city traveling from some distance to come to camp. And a lot of that was, I would say, were traditional former Camp Wewa participants from back when the camp was YMCA camp or a Boy Scout camp. So on the flip side, the day camp is your more community resident based, about 90% resident based program. So with overnight camp, it includes, we need to make sure we have breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the campers, so you're adding some costs there. I mentioned staffing. You got to make sure you have the appropriate number of staff. Each cabin's got to have at least 2. And then you need to have the staff structure in place to have responsible leads and coordinators in place to be on property. And then it's also geared a little bit different. You try and do more group by group activity. So you might have cabin challenges or more those style programming than our day camp, who will go through everything as larger groups. So it might not be more of that, camp style where it's the red cabin versus the yellow cabin in everything they do. So it's been around 30 campers, 30 to 40 both this year and last year. So I guess to take it to the next level, we're going to need to really think about how we get a high-level overnight camp program manager or overnight camp program coordinator in for that summer season. And ideally, if we find somebody that we can attract for that, ideally that'd be the person we'd look to for a spring break and a winter break camp. But again, it's a camp program, so it's more of a seasonal nature position. So trying to find that right fit for that type of program is a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, when we were contemplating the purchase, obviously a big point of interest for me was, you looked at the YMCA financial performance, and obviously they were somewhat breaking even. Prior to COVID times, they were a little bit profitable, but I mean, breaking even for the most part. But that's predicated on you're doing 3 months worth of overnight camping experiences and things like that. So for us to say 1 month, I mean, we're really basically saying, it's kind of like what we were talking during budget workshops. I mean, Camp Wewa, the cost center in and of itself, is going to take over an 80% bath in our budget this year. So not having multi-months with that overnight camping experience and it being very premier, we're sacrificing. What we're saying is that we're not going to hit numbers anywhere remotely close to somewhat breaking even on this camp. And I get it. Like, if we do that overnight experience, we've got to consider public access to the park. But I think we're being very literal on the state's interpretation of the public access, right? It doesn't have to be, in my opinion, and this is just me talking, a minute-by-minute kind of equitable treatment versus us. We talked about it in the pre-council meeting just before we got here to camp today, of really setting out a calendar of the camp and showing the value of saying, hey, it's not going to be accessible for maybe this 2 or 3 month period of time where it's going to have limited accessibility, but here's the value it's providing for our community, and we should be able to more than make up for that on the other times of the year in terms of accessibility, the programming that's being offered, the archery, the rock climbing, all these other great things that you all have on the plate. I just think that there's a way that we can maybe better position it, and maybe getting them to say, okay, we don't object to what you're doing. It's not going to jeopardize what you're doing with the grant. We don't have to repay $1 million, but at the same time, we can still. And I hate that I always talk about the money aspect of it. It's not like we're trying to have a money grab. We're having an experience that people want to pay for. And regardless of whether they're coming from out of town or not, I get that, but if we're making a very unique and premier experience for them, I think that's really the value add. But again, it goes back to the whole point. Does this council feel comfortable of saying, hey, we want to call this a camp and make it the best camp possible, or are we okay with saying this is Wewa Park, and oh, by the way, we do some day camp activities on the property? So really, that becomes the decision point for this council.
Yeah, and just to kind of add to that discussion, if we are to increase, let's say we were to do like a 2.5 month overnight program, and we bring in a top-notch program, and let's say it's 100, 120 kids, that will impact the number of kids we can bring for day camp. So it goes back to kind of what do you want to get out of that summertime programming? Do you want to hit, we could do, honestly, right now we could do 150, 160 kids in day camp if we had the staff all signed on.
So this is going to sound like a corny answer, and feel free to laugh and mock me all you want to. But I want to experience the romanticism that was offered up when we contemplated acquiring the park. Right? We had the Friends of Wewa that come out and eloquently spoke about their experiences doing overnight camp on this property. I fell in love with that idea. That's why I voted to approve to purchase this park. It's that aspect of things that I really want to be able to deliver to the people here in Apopka. And hey, maybe it's a non-resident that's coming to experience and they realize, wow, Apopka's got things going, and they move to Apopka. I mean, there's just so many, ancillary benefit statements to having that. And then there's pros and cons on each side of that.
Right, it could be economic driver for again, you can look at that stat in many different lenses. 15%, it can be looked at many different ways. I think it just comes down to what the desire is for the programming in the summer, and we can certainly craft up the annual schedule. We can send it to the state to review. give us a more clear, definitive answer on what they will not tolerate as part of the grant, and then make a decision from there if that's more of a route you want to go.
Because all it is, I mean, it's offering up to say, hey, here's our plan, here's what we would like to do, and give them the bandwidth to say, hey, we would prefer if you did it this way or that way, and that helps kind of drive our decision-making process up there too. So.
Yeah, and kind of where we have the current operating plan is based off of a cursory review by the state, not a formal review by any means, just a cursory review of our policies and rules for access to the park. So again, if that's the route that council would like to take, we can certainly draft that up and get in touch with our contact in the grant office to do a formal review and give us an answer on what that looks like for further decision.
I couldn't agree with you more, Commissioner Becker. I mean, I'm spot on with you as far as, we want to reach out, we want to bring in folks from outside, although we don't want to limit access to our kids, and so trying to find that balance. But I'm with you, the romanticism as it relates to, the way Camp Wewa was running. Having been out here for a couple of their little evening programs and the songs, and was a really, impactful on me. I'd forgotten all about it from, 40 years ago. So I think it's something I'd love to look toward, maybe getting some definitive answers from DEP. I will go to this, is when we applied for the $1 million grant, the stipulations they put in were kind of after the fact. It wasn't a part of the grant, so I wasn't, and maybe I should have pushed back earlier on the grant, but it was never, it was for the purchase, period. And so they kept adding, we knew things we wanted to accomplish, but then as the grant was, coming to fruition, they said, okay, now you've got to do this. Well, that wasn't, because quite honestly, $1 million doesn't sound like a lot of money, but, we'll put in, when you look at all the things that are requirements, we'll put in probably close to that. And if we have to, if we're handcuffed by the, public access, 24/7 or 365 days a year, it's going to make it difficult. So, I couldn't agree with you more on trying to, to make sure we got the balance. And I'm going to be going to Tallahassee probably the first committee week in November, and maybe I'll make a stop off at DEP and see somebody there that I can talk to about, what does that really look like, and see if we can get a little better, a little more clarity as to how we need to proceed.
And one final thing on the day camp side of it. So we did restart our Billy Dean Summer Camp program, our Apopka Parks and Rec program. That program did come visit the camp for field trips. So there still is an opportunity that if the want and the desires to go more overnight camp for more of the summer at bigger numbers, that we can still incorporate day camp at various facilities to come visit for field trips. So we scheduled that, Carolyn and our athletic staff scheduled that throughout the summer.
Bradley or Carolyn, if we had every cabin full, and we had the staff, which is probably the bigger problem, what would that look like? If we had the 4 weeks, let's just say we got all 4 weeks of July were for overnight camp, what kind of number would that look like?
So we have 12 cabins. You can put 12 campers in each cabin with 2 counselors. So that's 144 campers and 24 just counselors. Some of those would be lead counselors. Some would be, we'd also have to have coordinators on site. So you're talking 144 campers could stay on property.
So times 4, so over 500.
Correct.
550 or something.
Yeah, and you could, there's also opportunity to do, if you do the longer summer, you might do weekend stayover opportunities for, a certain number of cabins. That's something that I know is a traditional camp option for some of these overnight camps.
And the other thing is we're trying to work with our Orange, Seminole, Lake counties for the Thursday night stayover. What, 5th graders I think is. So we got to try to exploit that opportunity as well. I think that's we've had a couple, but we can, obviously we can try to increase that number as well. Well, with that, why don't we go ahead and open up for the public questions or sure, come on down.
Albert McKinney, 3603 Golden Gem Road. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to visit this beautiful venue. I have some observations with respect to safety. I would disagree that the camp is currently safe. But with respect to the city in general, it's not unusual that we find safety concerns. I have 5 years' experience of litigation with a municipality, as my mother died due to negligence caused by a trip hazard back in the United Kingdom. I came here tonight, the first thing I heard was one of your staff say that she tripped on a natural hazard, probably a tree root. But within 5 minutes of walking around here, I identified at least 6 trip hazards in the space of 100 yards. There's decking which has holes that are capable of a woman with a heel going down and catching, which is how my mother died. She fell down 3 stairs. So I've identified handrails that are inadequate. So what I would suggest is before you allow the city to become involved in more legal litigation, you really need an independent safety review. If I as a layperson can walk around here and identify as many hazards as I did in 5 minutes, I would sincerely hope that you're going to have a look at it. My recommendation would be if you find hazards that potentially are dangerous, then that area shouldn't be opened until they're repaired. My first thought was, I run a horse rescue, and I realize that I have to have people sign waivers because potentially there's hazards that leave me open to litigation. You guys take a walk out on that deck tonight and have a look at the handrails, have a look at the spaces between there, have a look at the bottom of your ADA compliant ramp. The wood's rotted out. So, you know, before we say the place is safe to have visitors in, let's make sure that's actually what's occurring. In respect to fire department, my information was that the fire department who inspect this property had been out on numerous occasions and could not gain access because the gates were locked. So I would like to know where the fire certificates are. I would like to see who they were signed by and when they were signed. I had a walk through the toilets just now. Toilets aren't ADA compliant. You couldn't get someone in there with a wheelchair and manage to use the toilet. Again, I'm not an expert, I'm only a layperson, but I'm led to believe that the fines can be $250,000 a day if you allow a facility to be used without ADA compliance. There's numerous things that I could say that are negative, but I think we need some positivity here. We're really lucky to have a beautiful venue like this, and I would hope that going forward that we participate with other interested parties. You know, there's a lot of things that we could do here to improve the property by partnering with other non-profits, such as the homeless, teaching them to do repairs, teaching them to do building. It's not a case of everything that the city does has to cost the city money if we partner. And I hope you gentlemen, you know, realize that as we go forward, I don't see why we'd only have to open for a month a year for camping. You know, we do horse riding experiences. We have campers come down to our place and at all times of the year. It's part of the charm of what you do. You don't only do things in fair weather, you know? So let's hope that we can open it up as a venue and have it open up maybe till 9:30 at night. We've got so much area here. What about more tennis courts here? You're not having to buy property upon tennis courts. There's all sorts of things we could be doing here to make money and make this place profitable for our city. Thank you.
Dennis New, 105 West Magnolia. First, I'd like to say I grew up on this lake. My grandparents owned the nursery next door and lived in the house, and I spent all my summers with them, so I'm really familiar with the camp. And I was elated when the city purchased it. And I thought they purchased it with the intent of fixing it up and either keeping it as a park or a camp, but fixing it up before it was occupied. Now, there's a lot of issues with rot, but the camp was unoccupied for 2 years, and it's going to take time to fix rot. But in this building alone, I walked through, there's 5 life safety hazards that would cause it to not be open to the public. There's no panic hardware on the exit doors as required by code. There's 2 doors to the outside that don't have emergency exit lights. There are non-ground fault interrupted plugs by sinks. There's a room full of paint storage here in the building. Shouldn't be there. And that's in a 5-minute walkthrough. There's electrical receptacles that don't have covers, and all of these things are fixable and repairable. And that was my thought when they bought the place. We were going to fix it up and do it. But if we're going to fix it up, it needs to be done before it's occupied by the public. I see we got a indemnification and hold harmless agreement. I can tell you, regardless of what the attorney says, if the buildings are not repaired and up to code, this isn't worth the paper it's printed on. Fault lies in that. My biggest concern is the safety of the kids we're doing overnight camps with, and I want us to do overnight camps because that is a very, I don't know the word you used, but it's a really memorable thing in a kid's life to come to an overnight camp. But I want them to come to an overnight camp in safe conditions. It's not like it was when the Boy Scouts had it, which my brother can attest to. He's old enough. He remembers when the Boy Scouts were here. I remember when Wewa took it over, from the time I could walk and come down the dock. And all of those things were there, and there were no capital improvements, and it just went by the wayside. Well, we own it now. And I know the commissioners have all heard me say it before about other things we own. We own it. We need to fix it. We don't need to endanger children by putting them in buildings where the siding doesn't have any closures at the top. And God only knows what kind of varmints can be up there dropping feces and everything else. What kind of diseases is it going to bring? The rot is one thing, but there's a lot of other little things that need to be fixed before it's occupied. Now, how long have we owned it? 2 years? And we put in ADA parking slabs and a recently installed fire alarm system in this building. I have 2 years of fire inspection reports that say no violation, no violation, no violation, but it doesn't have a signature to tell me who did it. Because I'd like to go to the state and have that person's license pulled. How does it go from no violations to, oops, suddenly there's no exit lights? There weren't any to begin with. So I love that we own it. As a taxpayer, I demand that we fix it before we put people at hazard and allow it to be occupied and used. And after that, the plans are great. All the plans are great, but we have an obligation to make it safe before we make it great.
Ace Woodham, Apopka, Florida, 47 East Magnolia Street. I'm very happy the city purchased this property. I spent many a days out here. I fished these ponds. I've hunted squirrel out here, but it's been a while back. But I am disappointed. I'm disappointed in the mayor. Bradley, I'm disappointed in you right now. I've been looking for a contract on this fire inspection. Did our city council members vote on the contract? You waving at me? Hello. Anyway, so far a contract hasn't been presented to me. Bradley's excuse, I'm looking for it. We're talking, how much is this contract worth for the fire apparatus? Is it $50,000? $100,000? How much money have y'all spent on debt, just that? And what I'm disappointed with you, Brian, we had the fire department told y'all this place was not safe. For 2 years now, we've had campers in here, little innocent kids, spending the night in unsafe conditions. And the city said it was okay. Let me tell you something. If my grandchild would come and spend the night here, and we had a fire, and something happened to one of my kids, someone's going to get their ass whipped. I won't tell you that right now. Especially when I'm assuming municipality had enough sense to put a fire suppression system in here and then in these camps. There's signs in here. I walked through this whole place last week. I came in, I signed in the front office, signed my name in. I walked all over this place. There's fire extinguisher signs pointing down. Ain't no fire extinguisher there. None. All right? There's out here at the pool, it's been fixed now, but at the pool they had chains around the gate so you couldn't get in. This 330-pound fella walks right through. Because the chain had so much thing on it, it was standing wide open. It was locked, but I went right through. The pool was 4 inches below the thing. Can't skim on the commercial pool. No wonder we need a new pump. I mean, the pump was sitting there just a humming away. The safety life rings in the pool area are dry rotted. The life jackets that you're talking about for the kids out here and thing are stored in the sun. They got UV damage on them. There's a power line running at the edge of one end of the pool. It runs through an oak tree, and the tree's already got the wire. It's bared out there. It ain't gonna take nothing much for that tree limb to rot and make contact with that electric fence and that power line. That whole electric fence is gonna kill somebody, electrocute them. The pool, the deck out here, yes, I want y'all to get it fixed. I want this to be a place for the citizens of Apopka to be proud of. I'm proud y'all bought it. But I got to go with Dennis. I'd like to see it fixed up before we put kids in here again, because that was asinine to do something like that. It was stupid. It don't take someone with a lot of intelligence to know that it could be done. There's a water fountain out there, unless it got moved, sitting out under the pavilion in the dirt. It's plugged in to a receptacle there on an extension cord, all right, in the dirt. The drain from the water fountain runs on the connection where it's plugged in at. A child touch that, gone, if it was short out. I mean, and we're wanting to let campers come in? Bradley, those ideas, I love them. It's great. I'd like to see it fulfilled. I like to bring my grandkids out here and let them fish off the dock. But this place is not prepared for the public yet. And it should be shut down to the public until it is fixed. I'm telling you. And I'd like to hear y'all's responsibility. And I heard the DEP grant was $1.7 million, not $1 million. And their stipulation was it's supposed to be a park, not a campground. So I'm just asking, but look, walk around and look. We got a first aid kit in there, they ain't got a damn Band-Aid in it.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, back to the commission. Commissioner Nesta?
No, thank you to the public for what you've said, definitely notated, and I see the same issues you guys do, for sure, and I want to thank staff. I know you guys are doing your absolute best with what you've been provided. At some point, though, and I brought this up many meetings past, is that it needs to come to the council. The council chose to purchase it. What's the plan moving forward? Do we skimp the budget and make it as bare bones as possible and only a park, or do we do a full renovation, really make this a world-class spot to have camps and things like that? So it needs to come from this council. I was the only one that wasn't here to say yay or nay to purchase this camp, and that's where the conversation I've been trying to have with the council is, what was your guys' vision when you guys did choose to purchase it, and then what do you want to do now with it? Just from some of the items that were referenced that are upcoming, that aren't planned yet in the next few years, I mean, it's a few $100,000, I would guess, that need to be done. 400,000, 500,000, 600,000 for pool renovations, things like that, the bathroom renovations, the roofs, all that, it's costly. And that's just getting us to like an even spot, not actually like upgrading us to that next spot. So It depends how we want to do this. I mean, what I'm hearing is that we're losing approximately $750,000 a year in cost versus income. I mean, we're not bringing in much income, but again, if the goal is to be a park, then that's okay, but we
It's
need
about
to,
four.
excuse me?
About four.
400,000 a year? Okay. And we need to define what we want this park to be, because I think it doesn't have an identity yet. It has a history, but this park doesn't currently have an identity, and that identity needs to be dictated by us. So I just would love to hear everyone else's decisions and thoughts and how we can move forward with this.
Mr. Smith?
My opinion is that it should be a park as well as a camp. I think we have a lot of facilities here that the general public could use as a recreational area. We don't have anything like this in this part of the city, and so therefore to have this opportunity available for a park as well as a camp, I think would be a benefit to the city.
Okay. Commissioner Velasquez?
Well, I feel the same way. I mean, I agree with some of the remarks that, comments, I should say, that has been made so far. Purchasing it, I think we were kind of hoping to continue to run it as a camp, but when we realized that the cost, that we were gonna need some grants, and then we have to abide by what the grants say, we are finding ourselves in a challenge between a park and a camp, but I think we could do both. I mean, how big is the park? 51 acres, 56, 15?
Depends on the
About
water
70,
level.
yeah. If you
What
include
is
some of
it?
the water, it's about 70.
70 total.
With
Yeah,
the
but
water.
that's 70 with
55,
the
55,
lake. But
55.
what's usable is, I think, 50.
55.
Right.
So I think we can manage to kind of divide the park to some extent where we have a facility for camp and then have it opened all the time as a park. So I mean, that's the challenge, is we are kind of rebranding what Camp Wewa was, and making it more adaptable to our city, because the history of Camp Wewa was when, YMCA had it, and Apopka was less than 25,000 residents. We're up to almost 60,000 residents, and we're selling the park to them as an amenity. So we need to kind of rebrand how we want to use this park and the camp. So it is going to take some effort and storm braining of, let's see how we can do this. Our chief financial officer said it takes about $400,000 in operation. Is that what you're saying?
No, he was
Is
asking,
that annually?
It runs a $400,000 loss every year.
Deficit.
he was
Oh.
asking about what we're losing.
Oh, it's the loss.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that's inclusive of our income.
So
Minus.
between 300 to 400, yeah.
yeah, that's.
And if you, maybe, along with your presentation, Bradley, if you'll have Blanche go ahead and put the financials together with that, just so, since we've,
Yeah, and
Yeah,
just,
operating.
there's still and that capital slide kind of shows it, there's still a heavy hit on the capital expense side of the camp that, again, they're needed, but when we get to a stage where we've kind of caught up on that side of it, we can better plan forward, so we're not taking huge hits every year to stay up.
So I
Upstanding.
remember when we initially were trying to purchase it, and I remember, Mr. Mayor, that you had said you had a lot of high-powered friends who were willing to be sponsors. Is that still something that,
we're working on it. We haven't landed any, I mean, other than the big Lowe's contract, which not the Lowe's input. I mean, they probably, I gotta believe they're, if you talk soft costs and hard costs, I bet you Lowe's well over $100,000 is the cost that they
yeah, but they came on because during COVID, we were closed.
right.
And all those corporations, they have, every year they have their employees go out and do a lot of community work.
Yeah.
So when we finally, okay, when we finally opened up Camp Wewa and COVID was no longer restricting us, Lowe's did a massive community project, and they picked Lowe's to do it, and they had employees from all over. I don't know if we'll get the same response. Now they'll come and do small projects, but that project was
It was
exceptional.
a regional, it was a
Yeah,
regional
it was
project.
regional, and they did. I mean, we even have the tree climbing organization that comes, and they hold, and I think that's in January, that they come and they do all the trimming of the trees. It's a competition, but at the same time, they're fixing all our trees, so that's kind of, you know, we don't have to pay for it, and the taxpayers don't. They come in and they do that. So I think if we can get some kind of groups that can come in and also do some of the work and have their event here, that would be an idea. But I do remember when we first purchased it, we had a lot of excitement with, we had the older campers that had
Friends
a
of
big
Camp Wewa,
fundraising.
yeah.
What did we do with their,
We've still got the money's still available. We're just, I guess they're looking for a project for them to sink their teeth into. We haven't really come up with one that Friends of Camp Wewa want to fund. We were hoping someone would be here tonight, but obviously didn't make it, but.
So the funds that they raised, because they actually went out publicly and did this fundraiser, do they have the funds or
Yes.
the funds here?
They do.
They do,
They
Friends
do.
of Wewa do, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, they still do?
yeah. It's just $20,000. It's not,
Oh, it's 20,000.
yeah, it's 20,000.
But they did a fundraiser
Yes.
specifically to enhance Camp Wewa. The other thing that I didn't mention, that I would like to mention, is at some point in time, the entrance into Camp Wewa. It's on a curve, it's not safe. Is there some way to get a turning lane into here, or better signage and some kind of lighting just at the beginning of the camp? Because I can tell you,
We added
I
a
mean, I
light,
know where Camp Wewa is, but I've passed it a few times and pretended like I was intentionally passing it when I wanted to turn around. But there's, you know, it's not safe to exit and it's not safe to enter. Especially, I came at 4:30, and, you know, the line of cars behind me, I mean, I started about a half a mile, kind of like with my, you know, telling them that I was gonna make a left somewhere. So, is that something we're working on?
well, we added the one light on would be the north side.
We do have the Duke lights that have been put
Right.
out, but it is a challenging area with the way the
I
road
did
goes
see
there.
the signage that's on the right-hand side to come in, to make the left. It's almost directly into this, but there's nothing over that sign, you know.
To light it up.
Yeah, to kind of light it up, or somewhere along the stretch there to kind of tell people that, you know, Camp Wewa is coming up. All of a sudden, you drive and you see Camp Wewa, and that's when you make the left right into it.
Okay.
No,
Okay, anything else?
no, that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Commissioner Becker, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, and I don't want to get too far from the most critical thing that we should be talking about here today, and that's just the safety of the camp. Obviously, we purchased the park. I mean, we're not going to go back in time. I mean, it is what it is. We have the park. And, you know, the camp versus the park thing too, but I don't have the skill set. And I think Commissioner Velasquez was, again, not to speak for you, but I think it was the point that was trying to be made is, you know, for every little anecdotal thing that they've said over here in terms of public comment, fire extinguisher replacement, signs, things like that, what assurances do we have as a council to say, instead of just, you know, Ms. Ray saying it or Mr. Williams you saying it, saying, hey, we've done it, and it's a verbal checkoff, what do we have to say that, okay, you have a process in place, you go and inspect the hall that we're sitting in on a recurring basis, and you're looking for XYZ things for fire safety, for example.
Right.
Talk
so,
us through that.
Yeah. So first off, the city's insurance provider does do an annual walkthrough of all city properties, documents issues found that we then send to our facilities maintenance department to take care of. So that happens annually. One thing I am looking to implement, and this will be the first facility we do this, is have our facilities maintenance professionals do a quarterly inspection of the properties that we have in the city. So not just here, it needs to be done citywide. We're now staffed up a little bit more than we were in the past in facilities maintenance, so it's a task that we can start accomplishing. But that's how you stay on top of these things, is your routine inspections. And like, I'm not a full expert on everything facilities maintenance wise either, so having that professional go through our facilities to just do a basic documentation of issues found, log the work order, make sure that work order gets completed. So then we start having a record of work completed throughout, again, not only this facility, but our city properties as whole. Because that's where it needs to be. It needs to be a routine. It needs to be a method, a process that happens on a regular basis, on a time scale that, again, can be documented and put into our work order system for our professionals to handle. And we have contractors, so if it's outside the scope of our internal staff, we have resources available to tackle that process. But that's kind of where that comes into play, is to, again, establish that standard that, hey, we're going to do our inspections internally on a scheduled basis, quarterly, and work from there.
And I would take the lens that, people that spoke during public comment take. It's like you're here every day or frequently, so sometimes you get kind of lost in, hey, I look at that every day and I don't spot something, but you just kind of look at it with fresh eyes. Obviously, anything life safety has to be, first and foremost in terms of interest and expenditure.
Right, 100%. And kind of piggybacking off of that, yeah, we have staff here all the time, every day. You kind of get in your routine for your daily operation, so it is good to have fresh eyes come in. And again, if we can have fresh eyes that have the professional experience and skills and knowledge on what they're looking at and what they're looking for, we can start better addressing those items on a more routine basis.
Got it. And then, so I'll just end my comments on, and when Commissioner Nesta brought this up at a recent council meeting, I thought I articulated myself okay. So if there's any blind spots, let me know. But going into this thing, I was a yes vote for this camp to continue that camping experience, that premier camping experience. So it would be my desire, like what we've spoke, making sure that the state understands what we're trying to accomplish here, educate them, drive the value home to them to understand where that $1 million is going. And whereas we may not have minute-by-minute reconciliation of public access versus private access, I think the money is intended and is being spent the way that they would be proud of. And so that allows us to not only close the gap a little bit by extending the overnight camping experience that drives some more of that top-line revenue. Because again, I go back to when we were having discussions when purchasing this park. Mr. Bass at the time, I had very specific questions about every dollar that we lose here is a dollar that we take away from some other general fund department. So I realize that we've spent over another $1 million plus. We're kind of burning our equity in this camp if we took the nuclear option and sold it off to developers, right? So I want to make sure that it's a camp that can kind of pay for itself, and I think it can do that by having unique and unparalleled experiences for people that use it. So, but thank you for the presentation tonight.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Radley. Thanks to the Parks and Rec team. Thanks for Blanche for coming out, and also Susan for coming out and taking notes for us. And thank the IT for, guys, got here at 3 o'clock to set us up for tonight. So thanks, everybody. Look forward to seeing you Wednesday night.